We're about to tackle a mystery that lives inside every single one of us. It's this universal blank space, right? A foggy void right at the beginning of our life story. So let's dive in and figure out why our earliest years are so darn hard to remember.
I mean, really think about it. You pulled off some of the hardest things you'll ever do in your first few years. You went from this totally helpless baby to a walking, talking, thinking little human. You had all these experiences. You felt joy, you felt frustration. But if you try to look back now, what's there? Yeah, for most of us, it's nothing, just a blank. How is it possible that the most formative years of our lives are a total mystery? Well, science actually has a name for this. It's called infantile amnesia. And what's wild is that it is completely universal. It doesn't matter where you were born, what language you speak, who you are. We all have this shared forgotten past. So this isn't some flaw in your memory. It's a fundamental part of being human.
So that leads us to the big question scientists have been chewing on for decades. Are those early memories totally gone, just erased forever? Or are they still in there somewhere, just kind of locked away from us? For a long time, the big idea, mostly from Sigmund Freud, was that we push down our earliest memories because they're full of trauma. But that theory just doesn't hold up, and for a really simple reason. We don't just forget the bad stuff. We forget everything. The happy memories of a birthday cake, the boring memory of a scraped knee, that exciting first time you saw a puppy. The real answer, it turns out, isn't in our psychology, but in our biology. So the first huge clue came from a pretty unexpected place: mice. Researchers gave young mice certain experiences to remember. Later on, when those mice were adults, they showed zero signs of remembering any of it. But, and this is the kicker, when scientists looked at their brains, they found the biochemical footprints of those memories were still there. This meant the memories had been recorded. The mice just couldn't get to them. And that led to this absolutely mind-blowing experiment. Using genetic engineering, scientists figured out how to basically flip a switch to activate specific proteins in the brain's memory center, the hippocampus. And when they did, the mice suddenly remembered. They could recall those experiences they'd long forgotten. This was a total game changer. It told us that infantile amnesia isn't about memories being erased, it's about retrieval. The files aren't deleted, we've just lost the password. Okay, so if the memories are in there, just locked away, then what are the keys? Well, it turns out our baby brains are missing three pretty critical tools. Tools that are absolutely essential for making the kind of memories that actually stick around for a lifetime.
See, the kind of memory we are talking about is called autobiographical memory. It's not just about remembering facts, it's about remembering the story of us. And that story doesn't just start writing itself from day one. The brain has to build three fundamental things first: language, a sense of self, and a concept of time.
So first up, language. Imagine your brain is a giant library. Before you have language, every experience you have is like a book with a totally blank cover, just tossed on a random shelf. The information's in there, but it's a complete mess. Language is like the librarian. It comes in and gives each experience a title, a summary, a spot on the shelf. It lets us connect events with words so we can file them in a way that we can actually find them later. Without that system, the memory is pretty much lost in the clutter. All right, next up is the idea of me. Before about 18 months old, a baby doesn't really have a strong sense of being a separate person. They see their reflection in a mirror and think it's just another baby. But then something incredible happens. They pass what's called the mirror test. If you put a little dot of paint on their nose, they'll see the reflection and touch their own nose. That is a huge leap for the brain. It's the moment it can start tagging memories with, hey, this happened to me. Without that tag, an event is just an experience floating out there with no owner. And the final key is time. For a 2-year-old, pretty much everything is now. The whole idea of yesterday or last week is super fuzzy. But around age 3, the brain starts being able to mentally separate the present from the past. This is what lets it create a timeline, placing events in order. A memory isn't just what happened, it's also when it happened. And without that context, it's really hard for an event to become a stable, long-term memory. Okay, so you need language, a sense of self, and time to make lasting personal memories. Got it. But this brings up a really interesting paradox. If we can't remember events, how on earth do we remember skills? Right? I mean, you don't remember the exact day you learned to walk, but you obviously know how to walk. You don't remember your very first word, but you know how to talk. It seems like a total contradiction, but the answer is that our brain doesn't just have one memory system, it has a few of them, and they all come online at different times. Let's look at this table. It breaks it down perfectly. episodic memory. That's the one we've been talking about, the story of our personal lives. It needs parts of the brain that don't fully mature until you're about 3 or 4. But then you've got procedural memory, which is all about skills. It's handled by different parts of the brain, develops super early, and works without you even thinking about it. You don't have to consciously recall how to walk. Your body just does it. Then there's semantic memory, just the facts. So, infantile amnesia is really a problem with that first one, our personal stories, our episodic memory.
And this difference is everything. Remembering the event of taking your first steps, that's an episodic memory. The brain system you'd need to save that little personal movie, where you were, how you felt, who was cheering you on, it just wasn't ready yet. But remembering how to walk, that's a procedural memory. That system was up and running from the get-go, storing the muscle movements without any of the story. So we keep the skill, but we lose the scene. So far, we've pretty much just been talking about the brain's hardware, but there's another force at play here, one that's just as powerful in shaping what we remember and forget, the people around us. In a very real way, our families are the first ghostwriters of our life story.
This is where our understanding of memory kind of flips on its head. It's not like a video camera that just passively records what happens. It's way more like a living document that we're constantly editing and making stronger. And the single most important thing you can do to strengthen a memory is to tell the story of it.
And research shows this huge difference in how families talk about the past. Think about it in 2 ways. On one hand, you've got passive storytelling. We went to the zoo and you saw a lion. The kid is just getting information. But on the other side, you have active reconstruction. Hey, remember the zoo? What was that huge animal we saw? How did it make you feel? See the difference? That second way makes the child pull up the memory themselves, to own it, to explain it. And that process is what turns a quick experience into a memory that actually lasts. So parents and family members basically become memory architects by talking about shared memories all the time, by asking open-ended questions instead of simple yes or no ones, and by helping a kid connect their feelings to what happened. They're giving that young brain the scaffolding it needs to build a solid personal history. For a little kid, a story that's never told is often a story that's forgotten.
We've gone over the how and the what of infantile amnesia, but that leaves us with the biggest and honestly the most interesting question of all. Why? Why are our brains actually designed this way? I mean, is this massive act of forgetting just an unfortunate bug in our system, a side effect of how slowly we develop? Or could it be an intentional feature, maybe even an essential one for becoming the complex people that we are? And this leads to a really cool idea called the conscious reset theory. The theory goes like this. Infantile amnesia is like a strategic reboot. In our first couple of years, our brain is just sucking in raw data, making millions of really basic connections. Forgetting all that might be the brain's way of clearing the slate, pruning away all the simple stuff to make room for something way more complex. A unique personality, a sense of culture, a moral compass. It's kind of like wiping a computer's factory settings so you can install your own custom software. And that just changes how you look at everything. It forces you to ask this really deep question about who you are. We always think that we're the sum of our memories, right? That our story is what defines us. But what if that's only half the picture? Because maybe, just maybe, it's the forgetting that truly makes us who we are. That blank space at the beginning of our lives isn't a tragic loss. It's the clean, empty foundation that allows every single one of us to build a unique life, to write a story that is truly our own. That void isn't a bug, it's the canvas.